Timely accessing of accurate data empowers better business decisions. The vast, often isolated data available within an organization can only be synthesized into valuable insights with automation and AI. We move on to the next session on this note. I hereby invite our expert speakers to share their insights on translating data into intelligence. We have Mr. Mohamed Younus, who's the CFO of 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗶𝗴, Mr. Zeeshan Niazi, CFO of Teco Middle East, Mr. Malik Farooq Ahmed, who is Group CFO of Fadhili Abdul, Latif Jameel Group, Mr. Ajai Thomas, CFO of Kuwait International Bank, and Mr. Mohamed ELRouby, who is the CFO Middle East and Africa for Pharmanovia. I would like to hand this over to Mr. Anis to lead this discussion as the moderator. Over to you.
Thank you, Disha. Thank you very much for starting the presentation. Welcome everyone to the session where we are discussing how to turning data into intelligence. As we all know, there's company almost on an hourly basis or even every second, company used to generate data. But some of data, if you see some of those data might look very meaningless, but if those are used in a right way with the right technology, it can give you a lot of meaningful insight. So I'm your host for this session. My name is Mohamed Anis. I'm an FCCA and CA from ICW, UK. I'm also a chartered certified internal auditor from US as well. I started my career as an external auditor in UI, where I worked for almost 9 years. Currently, I'm working as a CFO for 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗶𝗴, who is a joint venture of 50% owned by Saudi Aramco. Before I will start the session, it's very important. I'll ask each of our valuable speakers to just briefly introduce themselves so we can understand that what their background and what market and what industry they will be sharing their knowledge with. So I'll start with Zeeshan, if he can introduce himself briefly.
Thank you very much, Anis, for giving me the opportunity. I am at the moment CFO for Teco Middle East. It's a joint venture company between Teco Taiwan and international leading motor manufacturing and a leading Saudi national group, 𝗧𝗿𝗍𝗶𝗴. I have over 20 years of experience in leading finance function. I have been associated with pharmaceuticals, with the oil and gas and the concession business. My basic training is from PwC, 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗶𝗴, and my qualification is I am a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants Pakistan, and I'm a member of England and Wales also. Thank you.
Thank you, Zeeshan. Thank you very much. Farooq, can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Farooq Malik, and I am FCCA, and I have done CIMA as well. And I started working with Perfectly One Malik, and then went through, went ahead and worked with Almarai for around 5 years, and then worked with Pepsi for some time as well, PepsiCo. And then from there, I had basically moved to business groups. So I basically, as currently I'm been working with Hadia Abdul Group, which is a diversified business group with different sort of interests, business interests that they have. And I look forward for this discussion.
Thank you, Farooq. Thank you very much for that. Ajay, if you can please introduce.
Thanks. Sure, Anis. Ajai Thomas, Chief Financial Officer, Kuwait International Bank. I joined the bank in 2015. Prior to that, I spent about 10 years in Deloitte and PricewaterhouseCoopers in Kuwait. I had a bit of experience in Bahrain and India also before. I'm a chartered accountant, certified information security audit, certified data privacy solution engineer, and I hold a master's in financial management. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Mohamed, please.
Thank you, Anis. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today. My name is Mohamed ELRouby. I am a global finance leader with almost 20 years of experience across global multinational companies like Johnson & Johnson, Novartis, Takeda, and Allergan. I handle multiple international senior roles across Middle East, Africa, Southwest Asia, and Turkey. I'm a global finance speaker and writer. I'm a certified CIMA from UK, FP&A from US, and I hold the MBA as well. And looking forward for very interesting discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you, everyone. So Thank you very much, all the speakers, for introducing themselves. As we see that, like, we have a speaker from the multiple backgrounds, so definitely it will be very insightful discussion with all of them. That how, like, what the focus should be for the company for the data to make it intelligence, because there are a lot of factors company needs to be addressing in front of the mindset they have, whether the life skill set is available with the company, they have a relevant technology available in press, they have a processes. So there are a lot of things that company needs to do, to make that data useful. So I will start the session. Before I will start, even I ask all our participants, if they have any questions, please write in the chat box, and definitely we'll be happy to answer when we finish our discussion. So please do make sure that you drop your questions and we manage to answer as much as possible. So I'll start the session like by just asking from Zeeshan that, whenever we think about data and analyzing that, the first thing usually comes to our mind is a traditional Microsoft Excel. Like, okay, let's use Excel to do all the analysis. So how you feel that, like, Excel with all the technology available today is now really today in the today market is really, it can give you that insight, or do we need to invest in a better tools? How you see that based on your experience?
Yes, Anis, actually, as you said, Excel is the father of data analysis, right? So whenever we talk about data analysis or any number function, we cannot ignore Excel. So Excel has its very vital position as far as the data analysis part is concerned. But the way things are moving forward, right? The way the big data is hitting the scene, and as I was looking at Manish's presentation also, that data is the new God, right? So you have to give respect to the God. So indeed, Excel is a basic tool and is will always be one of the vital tools in the data analysis arena. But looking into the growing data generation, data accumulation, of course, organizations have to look into the new technologies like Python and other languages, and the way we were discussing RPA and all. So all those things cannot be 100% catered by Excel. So yes, indeed, we all as a businesses have to look into the future and looking into the muscles, financial muscles, and the vision of the organization, and accordingly should look into investing into more advanced tools and languages like Python and all. So, but having said that, Excel would never lose its utility. Yani importance of Excel will always be there, but organization should be futuristic and also slowly and gradually move into the new technologies, and investment should be made gradually.
Perfect, Zeeshan. Thank you very much for the insight. Farooq, based on your experience and dealing with the holding company with multiple entities under your group, so how you feel, how you take that? You're on the mute.
So see, basically, as Zeeshan said, that Excel has done a very good service to data and has been a very vital tool, and is continuing to have that image of being vital to organizations, particularly because we all have a different diverse ecosystems of organizations, from small to medium to large, and from different sort of structures there. So I think it really depends on at what level the organization is and how that sees the Excel. From my perspective, working with both multinationals and business groups, which are a bit bigger than normal entities, when you see in the small and medium scale industries. I think, it is very evident that, from the day I started working in a company, started my career, that there were tools that were being used in addition to Excel in terms of information for information requirement. And in 2007 around 2004 around, I started seeing the data warehouses and how that could basically enable organizations to have a better decision making in terms of information, and how the information could be relayed to the business. I think it really depends on why the organization is an evolution itself. I have seen groups that I worked with, that we have evolution in some of the entities, where the entities have gone from using Excel, and then they have a journey towards the digitalization, and how they have been using different systems. And then you see you have Power BIs and and some other tools that have been used. So it is basically, and it really depends on what is fit at that particular point. But for sure, as Zeeshan said, it's very critical for organizations to understand where they are going, and how the the data revolution has basically changed the dynamics and the time period that an organization has to evolve. So I think it's overall, I believe that while Excel will have still a use and a usability, but ultimately organizations will definitely go to phases where they need more tools, more 3D tools, not tools that can basically recreate a lot of different data points and a huge amount of data that is coming into organizations, and it's inevitable, basically.
Perfect. Thank you, Farooq, for that. Yeah, even like I was reading, I saw one article of Gartner actually. There is still almost 80 to 85% organization are still relying on Excel to their budgeting, say for example. So still Excel is still there in the market, and there definitely is, as I said, Zeeshan said, is a godfather. So it's the starting point is that is the first analytical tool available. Yeah, good to hear. Now, just moving on to on that, just building on to that. If I come to Mohamed and I will ask him, is these data analysis tools and techniques, is it really helping? You think that will free up the CFO time, and CFO can be more focused and work with the CEO to work more on the strategic decisions making? How you see that, Mohamed, in that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anis. As our colleagues mentioned, that finance need to free up their times and also their team's time, because even if we have the best team in the world, we have the best system in the world, but the team doesn't have time, we cannot contribute to the decision making, and also we cannot add value to our organizations. So I believe the CFO should focus on 4 areas to free up their times. Number 1, eliminate. Number 2, automate. Number 3, delegate. And number 4, reallocate. So I name it the 4 A's. Elimination. The CFO should sit with the finance team and review all the task list for each one. What are the low value adding activities? And also the CFO has to sit with the other functions and the strategic management team and understand from them what are the key and the important strategic objectives for the organization. Based on that, we have to eliminate all the unnecessary tasks from our agenda. Number 2, automate. CFO also should focus on automation, and we believe data analytics culture and data analytics system will help us big time to automate most of our process to free up our time. And number 3, delegate. We can delegate the non-value adding activities to third parties or to the other functions, also to free up our time, and reallocate only our time on the high value adding activities. So data analytics will help us to not wasting our time on data aggregation, asking who should do what. If we have the right analytics governance also, this will help us to free up our time, because we know exactly who is owning the data, who is reviewing the data, who is analyzing the data, and also who's gonna use the data. So analytics would be a big help for CFO to free up their time and contribute more to value adding activities, and also in freeing up their time to build relationships with other functions, solving business problems, and also giving the management options and scenario and looking forward views as well.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you very much for that. Ajay, based on your background in the banking for that quite a long time, how you see that, like, is the data analysis really, like, definitely in the banks being such a big organization, how you see that that is really helping CFOs to be more focused on strategies rather than day-to-day work?
Again, good morning, Younus, my fellow panelists, and esteemed audience who could spare valuable time to attend this session. I also thank NETNEX Global for organizing this forum, which has brought together such a large number of leaders in the financial domain. We have seen an evolution of the traditional CFO role to more of a strategic and cross-functional business advisor, like the speaker before and the panelists have been discussing. The CFO is now required to present business analysis in a way that is more meaningful to the right audiences across the company, which would facilitate the right decision making. So decision makers look towards the CFO to have these meaningful insights which are current and easy to comprehend. Reliable data analytics, which is the key topic today, it provides a great help to CFOs in providing such business analysis. The role of the CFO, which leverages leading analytics to support operational decision making, also demands a mindset to shift the organization from a historical perspective that most of the organizations are used to a forward-looking perspective. Also, advanced analytics assist CFOs to respond faster with greater insight to changes, to adapt pricing for capital allocation, when you specifically talk about banks, and manage supply chain. And we are seeing a lot of bottlenecks and pressures on supply chain and other areas. Data analytics also helps CFOs to focus more on contributing to strategic initiatives, free up their time, rather than spending on evaluating historical data for insights for forecasts like we used to do earlier. It also helps by way of real-time predictive analytics, all these big data techniques that have come in to enhance organizational capabilities which are required to sustain competitive advantage in the current scenario. In any case, a CFO is required to support the organization's strategy development. He is required to help the business leaders quantitatively analyze the financial implications of different strategy choices. And this would not be possible at this age and technological situation without deploying proper data analytics. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ajay. Yeah, definitely, it's very important to that. Now, I'll try to come back to Farooq and ask him that, okay, yes, we have seen, like we discussed, that CFO need to have those tools to help businesses. But what CFO needs to do to bridge the skill gap, like the people who are currently working on a traditional platforms, how you see the shape, what action CFOs should be taking to make sure that the teams are up to speed to take care of these skill gaps. So how you see those things?
See, I think understanding skill gaps is, how that skill gap has crept in. It's not something that is today. It has been like in the first industrial revolution. You could see there were skill gaps, in the second, in the third. And now we are on the fourth industrial revolution, which is basically IT and information enabled. I think so it has always been there for entities. Have always been trying to understand the skills that are required for them to operate and be effectively, effective and enable it to, sustain its operation and be profitable and grow over a period of time. I think now the question is, what we have seen from last 8 to 10 years of time is basically. Many of the organizations in COVID times have been hit by the sudden understanding that there is a huge, difference between what the organization needs for digitization and a lot of different other technologies that have come into the workplace, and how the current human resources within the organization, within the finance or outside the finance or in the whole organization are basically delivering their roles and responsibilities. I think for organizations to honestly, to evaluate the skill gap, it's very critical that we understand and evaluate what an organization requires in terms of the technologies and how it is being, how it interfaces with technologies and what it needs in order for it to sustain and thrive with new realities that the business has been thrown into. So I think it's very critical that organizations have a very clear mindset as an organization. As a CFO, for example, it's very important that you understand the skill gap that has been crept into, that is there within your finance team first, and understand how to sort of evaluate that skill gap and what does it mean. So skill gap is basically, if you see the roles and responsibilities of a particular person or on a particular role, and what he is supposed to do and what he is doing, how he's interacting with technology and how he's interacting with information systems and whatever has been that is enabling his delivery of that role. I think for so it is evaluating is the first, I think, point of it in understanding on the job what does the role definitely need and what the person is basically capable of doing it, and then understanding, do we need to rehire, do we need to upskill, do we need to reskill? These are all strategies that as a CFO you have to always keep an eye on it, whether you need to reskill, whether you need to upskill, and you need to have a very clear mindset in terms of how the technologies, how the organization is moving, and why to take up the systems and technologies that can really help organization in terms of its day-to-day operational work, in terms of how to do the predictive analysis, how to do the perspective analysis, how to do the cognitive reporting and on business strategies and business issues. I think that's very critical for our organization. And honestly, it's very important for organizations to be patient with people. I think it's it's known fact that instead of hiring a new person, it is good, all is shown in studies and research, that it's always better to train and hire and upskill your current employee because he understands the business case. So it's not all about technology, it's about the marriage between growth and innovative technologies that have come into and the business scenario that a particular business is in. So you should not waste and lose. You should try to retain your people. You should try to upskill your people. You should try to reskill your people in order for you to have the business case always there within the business, who understand the business, who have been working in the business, and identify. And also, I think the opportunity to recognize people achievements. I think in my organization, what we have done is I have worked with my own team and provided opportunities for them to basically understand what their role is, understand the technologies that are coming into the business, and how those technologies can be exploited, not only for what the roles they are in the very narrow sense of it, but how they can be basically touching the other departments and other operations within the business. So as able to have the collaborative approach to that technology, which is very critical to business. I think you have to encourage people, and you have to recognize the efforts that the people make, and that is how you can basically reduce the skill gap that is within the organization, and make it potentially a plus point, a benefit opportunity where organization can grow further.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for the insight. Zeeshan, do you want to add anything on that, on the skill gap?
Indeed, Anis, thank you very much. As Farooq rightly pondered on, that this is not the first revolution, right? We have been through with the industrial revolution. So now it is digital revolution. So it's a huge change. And when there is a change, it is definite that the skill gap will come into play. Of course, every change needs to build up to actually bring people to the level to cope up with the changes. I would recommend, if we talk about how to manage the skill gap, because skill gap management is the key thing to actually make a change successful. So you have to fill up the skill gap. I would like to, in fact, bifurcate this question into two areas. One at the organization level, where the C-level and the stakeholders are there. And the two is the employee, right? Because skill gaps are at both ends. So I will first touch upon on the C level and the stakeholders. The first and the basic thing on that level is the change of the mindset, right? Looking into the benefit of the digitalization. When they would realize that, they would not only train themselves, but also motivate their team to actually embrace the change. So that is one of the basic thing for actually skill gap management. First is the change in the mindset. 2, looking value into it. 3, identifying the key skills which your organization would be looking into to train people to get to the objective. So these three these are the 3 areas which the C-level organization stakeholders, the decision makers should look into to actually start filling up the skill gap. Number 2 is the employee level. This is mostly comprised of the young people, right? So they are already motivated. They are already looking into the change. They are already technology savvy. So all they need is a right direction. And if they've been given right direction and the training opportunities, I think they will really help to, in fact, fill up the gap more quickly than the stakeholders. The key is if the stakeholder mindset changes and he sees the skill gap and he invests into training and is patient, then the whole organization will embrace the digitalization change. And that's how I think is the roadmap for filling up the skill gap we were talking about. And it is very vital. It's very vital.
No,
thank you.
Definitely, it's very important. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Farooq, for that. And I'll just move on to the, in a way that, Ajay, if it comes to you and I'll ask that, being the pandemic was there for last 2 years, is these advanced technology, these tools really help us in the pandemic, especially in the banking sector where you expect physical things? So how the banking sector is looking to that and how they use these technology to make a hybrid model or purely work from home? How that help you in those things, in those areas?
Thanks, Anas. COVID-19 started as a global health crisis, but quickly developed into an economic crisis. Supply chain pressures caused significant changes to customer behavior. For example, demand of toilet paper rose by about 7 times in the second week of March during that year in some of the advanced economies. With business leaders now requiring to act very quickly, the crisis provided a chance for advanced analytics and AI-based techniques to augment the decision-making, to take center stage in terms of evaluating strategies by organizations. Digital businesses will real-time access to customer-focused applications as customers increasingly use mobile devices to transact, and has rapidly become the new normal for transactions. Uncertainty along various dimensions made scenario analysis also an important aspect of decision making. Such analysis also helped organizations to plan for best case and worst case scenarios with due consideration for black swan events like COVID-19. Organizations have learned lessons from the pandemic, and now they look at a range of scenarios rather than single prediction or a baseline projection like we used to do earlier. Embedded analytics also became more popular. Organizations have been forced to arrange workforce as remote teams, hybrid teams, various permutation combinations of these. The Gartner report calls embedded analytics as a digital workplace capability where data analysis occurs within the user's natural workflow without the need for moving to various separate applications. Another important technology adoption has been cloud adoption. Cloud and AI augmentation now act as critical enablers and scale accelerators for big data and analytical trends. Also, successful organizations were quick to promote the use of AI, cloud, and advanced analytics with the support of big data. predictive analytics started to be incorporated as an important aspect of decision-making tools that CFOs present to decision makers looking at scenarios. Another big change was that we were forced to change the operating model where we used to operate in data silos. Isolated spreadsheets were maintained by a set of people or departments, which have been moved towards a more collaborative work approach, because obviously which was forced by this hybrid working situation. Another issue with the data silo is that it would lead to multiple versions of truth, which throws out the wrong analytics that we need as CFOs. A major shift was also seen in staff behavior, as hybrid and remote work was quickly adopted these embedded analytics and were very supportive of this technology adoption. So it also helped decision makers, and as CFOs, we could support business decision making by providing them the right analytics. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Mohamed, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, thank you, Anis, and thank you, Ajai. Also, you highlighted it very well. I would like to say also, after a pandemic, teams had to work remotely and data become on the cloud. No more, data on servers, and everyone has to come to office. So data become available, accessible to different functions, not only to finance functions. And also after the pandemic, there is a high demand to make a fast and accurate decisions. So finance really changed big time, not just being a trusted scorekeeper who owns the financial data. No, finance role now changed big time, because data now became available everywhere. And also finance has to deal with financial and non-financial data, as mentioned by Ajai, that big data now is a trend. So finance has to enter the game, dealing with big data, using analytics and leverage technology to provide management as a trusted and strategic business partner. At the same time, post-pandemic, the situation now became VUCA. Things are not clear for everyone, and every day we have new change. So finance has to provide management with a fast and robust, decision supporting analysis and scenarios and looking forward views in order to help management to make an accurate and, on the spot, decision. So this is why finance has to enter the game, dealing with big data. And if finance will continue with the current mindset, definitely finance will be out of the game. So again, we have to leverage analytics, and now it's not just become a helpful tool; it become a must for all finance organizations. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mohamed. Just building on to that, Ajay, Ajay, as I come back to you and ask you, now these data technology and analysis, it really help us, help the companies improving the cost and ROI. Those are really, or is not that beneficial than what we expected? How you see that in your case?
Sure. As we have noted, customer journeys have been witnessing a significant shift towards online transactions during and post the pandemic. So operations and organizations that depend on data-driven strategies tend to have an edge when we utilize analytics. They are able to take faster decisions, and this helps in increasing overall revenue and also to decrease operational cost. If you take the example of marketing, with the use of data analytics, organizations move from mass marketing campaigns to focus on targeted customer acquisition strategies. So customer profile data analytics is used to deploy marketing channels, which are probably more likely to convert leads to sales or customer acquisition. Supply chain digitization improves traditional supply chain management. These integrate new technologies which can combine real-time location and business data across the entire supply chain and combine to a single central source of information. And it also provides end-to-end visibility. And the important advantage of deploying data analytics is the timely measuring and reporting of KPIs, which obviously is one of the most important functions for a CFO, especially in a bank. When we talk to ALCO and other committees, KPIs always take center stage. Availability of real-time data and deployment of right analytics tools also helps organizations to improve productivity. So with the right data, you know the pain points, you know where there are opportunities to improve. It also helps in improving productivity. Coming back to predictive analytics, it's becoming more and more relevant now. Not nearly the luxury like we used to think about this prior to the pandemic, because it enables organizations to predict trends and discover valuable insights that help them make strategic decisions through big data analytics. To conclude on this, organizations will need to collect accurate data. That's one of the most important aspects now. Use the right analytics to apply insights over various scenarios, and do this continuously while ensuring that the data is clean, reliable, and obviously coming from a financial sector, we can't compromise on customer privacy, and compliance responsibilities also need to be met. So it did not come as a surprise when I read a Gartner report that data-related costs increased by 50% during the period 2019 to 2021 compared to 2016 to 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you. Mohamed, you want to add anything on that, like being in a pharmaceutical industry? Do you want to add anything on that? Mohamed? Yeah.
Hello?
Sure, Zeeshan, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mohamed.
Yes, Zeeshan, yeah, no problem. You go ahead.
All right. Actually, you see, the question is that the data and the hands-on experience of the data and the adaptation of the data in the industry, in the real environment is something which we are looking forward to. And for this, of course, the experience which I had as far as the digital adoption is concerned is a very important subject, and I have looked into very closely, and the use of increased data-based decision making has helped overall decision making, and as very rightly mentioned by Ajay, that the predictive analysis and the more insight of the supply chain has helped the decision making processes for the organization.
Okay. Thank you, Zeeshan. Thank you very much for that. Now, as we're going toward the end of our session, I'm just to summarize things that we saw, that like we need to have a technology, and to CFO need to free up their times to be more strategic partner rather than just doing a historical accounting, plus to fill the skill gap. I'll just ask, or I'll start with Farooq, and ask him that if, like, with all this technology changes which are coming, data being so large and so complicated, what you will feel of one piece advice you want to give to all the CFO that they should do with the technology which are coming in, and how they will, what they should be doing for that?
I think it's a very good question, basically today, that I think most of the CFOs are sort of examining and trying to understand. I think from my point of view, I think how I see it is basically, considering that how big amount of data is coming to organizations. And, as a CFO, historically, what we have been doing is we have always, we have been seen as leaders who have very high, index in terms of how accuracy of the information has been very critical for our roles. And since we all know that it is all financial information, it's very critical to have it accurate and complete for the business to basically decide on the course of action, or know where they are and where they stand. So I think historically, this is how our mindset had been as CFOs, is we are very, very sensitive to accuracy of information, how the information is generated, and we have done a very outstanding job in terms of how we have gone through, regulating that and controlling that information in terms of how it is captured through different RPA processes and pay to collective processing and all that. So I think our normal financial information has been well controlled in a well-controlled manner, and has always been. There has been a very high accuracy in terms of that information. Now the question is, what we are standing and seeing ourselves is, a lot of information that the organization is accessing today is data that is coming from outside, and it's a humongous amount of information that's coming and data that is coming into our organization. And then the question on how we deal with this as CFOs, because for us, the complexity, the completeness of the information, the accuracy of the information mindset that we have is that is thrown us into an environment where we need to really understand how we deal with it. I think as a CFO, what I have done is it is always good to embrace. I think there was a speaker, Manish, before, if I remember his name. He was very right in saying the mindset of the CFO. I think we have to build, as a CFO, what I have done is basically I have embraced this huge amount of data that's coming into the organization as a CFO. But at the same time, I have been very sort of understandable that this information has to come in a particular format and in a particular way, and that for it to do is to generate a mass consensus within an organization that you need to create a proper governance over this data that is coming. You have to create a proper channels of this data so that you have a lot of structured and unstructured data that's coming to the organization. How you deal with this data. So I think that is how we have to, as a CFO, that you have to deal with. You have to create a proper framework for this data. And Zeeshan and others at the same time talked about different silos of information that is available. And historically, it has always been there. So I think the time is, it has been, we have done. It's very critical that you have that integration, data integration as an organization. I think so first it is, I think if I point it out, I think it is first the framework of how the data has been captured by the organization and have a governance around it, have a policy and the procedures around it. And then the second is to build the integration around this data to ensure that you have the access to the data in a format that is very fruitful to the organization. And then you have to find opportunity. This gives an opportunity to basically exploit the data and create new streams for revenue streams, new businesses for organizations. Have more, if you want to have an internal perspective, understand costs and do benchmarking of costs, and that can be very beneficial to business. I think so. It starts with the CFO having a right mindset in terms of what to do, and building consensus, working around with other teams in the business in order for you to basically build a proper framework, a proper governance, create integration. Build cross collaboration. I think as organizations we all work in different places and we have different priorities and mindsets and goals and objectives. But I think the time now is very critical for organizations to create cross collaboration, create unify those efforts in relation to actually getting interaction with the data and how we interact with it. So that's very crucial. This is just my take on that on this.
Thank you, Farooq, for the really insightful. That it's very it's very important. The CFO need to ensure that that all these things are in place to have a proper data analysis technology in place. So it's very critical for all of us to look into those things. Now, definitely we almost near to the end of the session, and we have one question came from Amanda, and I'll ask I'll refer to Mohamed. They were asking that how do we make sure that all the data systems align with one another? We find that we have many data solutions, but they are not at all speaking to one another. What is your experience in designing these kind of streamlined approach so different departments can talk to one data system? What is your experience on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Amanda, for the question. I guess that's very important questions. So to implement the analytics culture, we have to ensure 4 things, right? People, process, system, and governance. So from a process perspective, which is answering your question, we have to ensure the right data governance. Who is owning the data? So we have to sit with all the functions and agree who's gonna own the data, then who's gonna manage the data cleanings, data management, data ensuring the accuracy of the data. This is number 2 step. Number 3, who's gonna analyze the data? So it should be clear for everyone, and who's gonna use the data or be the consumers of the data. So those 4 areas should be very clear inside your organization. Once you agreed on those process, you're gonna exactly integrate all the systems, because you know who's gonna do what and who's gonna consume what, who's gonna analyze it. So this is a very important perspective. The second important point, which is aligning with the business. I saw many mistakes from finance professionals who implemented new technologies or new analytics without sitting with the business, without understanding the key strategic priorities for the business. So sit with the business, design your analytics process as per the business need, as per the business model, and also ensure governance, as I said. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And now, on behalf of all the organizers, I thank you everybody. Thank you all the speaker on that. Deeksha, like any other question, or shall we conclude the session now?
I think in the interest of time, if we have any questions, I will be sure to share them with you, and we can share it back to the audience. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anish. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you, Zeeshan. Thank you, Farooq. It was a great session. Thank you all. I appreciate you taking out your time and joining us today.